37 years on my count since your first Cheltenham Festival winner, but you had, was it a few years prior to that, waiting for it. Can you remember back in those days, this sort of build-up and the buzz of it, or was it different in many senses?
It was different because, there were quite a few. We started in 78 and had our first winner in 85. But Josh Gifford and I think even the Duke, David Nicholson, I mean, took them a long time to break down the doors.
Yeah.
And it was only 3 days then. I have to admit that, the numbers, we've been able to get the number. Actually, there are not that many more races, but there will be when we have 5 days.
Yeah.
But there won't be that many more. But it was great to get, and it's a bit like the Grand National. I mean, we've been trying for 43 years and we have been second a couple of times, but that's the one thing I can't break down. Yeah,
but the festival, the Cheltenham Festival, has always been a massive part of the Seven Barrows operation. There are a few years, and I wonder if you remember them, where you did come home nil point, nothing. And I'd imagine those years you're not the kind of person that came back in the car thinking, oh, it's just Cheltenham, there are other festivals to win. That's never been your mindset.
Well, that's the trouble with, I mean, people will say that Cheltenham is top heavy for the National Hunts year, and it is. It is everything, and people, even media say that you concentrate on that and you don't, nothing else matters. Well, to the owners, nothing else does matter, actually. That's really what they want, and not surprisingly, that's what we aim them at. If the horses are good enough, that's where you've got to target your season. The flat, you've got everything from starting with the Guineas and Chesters and Yorks and Goodwoods, Royal Ascot, all sorts of festivals going on, every other week. And if you miss one, you can hit the next. But we've got to try and get it right for 4 days in the year. And actually, to be fair, that's not quite right, because Aintree have done a fabulous job, and they really have built that up into a great festival. So you have got a slight, I don't say it's consolation, but it's great fun. It doesn't quite have the pressure and the sort of the enormity of the Cheltenham buzz.
Yeah.
So, excuse the pun.
But can you remember 2007 and 2008? 2 years, no winners, but 2009 you came back all guns blazing. Punjabi won the champion hurdle. And then since that, you've never looked back. There's never been a year that's gone past without coming home with at least 2 winners. Was that a sort of turning point, really? Because it's just been year after year constant for Seven Barrows since then.
Yeah, they've been great years, but obviously you have to have great horses to be able to go and be lucky enough to be in there fighting. And that's why it becomes so important. And actually it's what makes that, and again, it's going to be the same situation this year. The first race on the first day, and that's going to be a big race for us this year.
Yeah.
We've got 2 big boys, I think, in there, and so's Willie, as always.
Yeah.
First of all, we've got to get the Irish under control, and that's not going to be easy. Last year was embarrassing.
Yeah.
So if we could start by winning the Supreme, at least it's England 1, Ireland 0.
Yeah.
And from our point of view, you're off and running.
It leads me into a really interesting point I noticed. Last year was unusual for you. No runners in the Supreme or the Ballymore, no novice hurdlers. But at the beginning of this season, when I came to the Open Day, you said this is going to be the year of the novice hurdler. You had this thought in your mind that it would happen. Has it exceeded your expectations somewhat, the quality and the horses that you're bringing to these novice hurdlers?
Yeah, sadly, actually, there's 1 or 2 that haven't come forward that I thought they would. A couple went wrong earlier on. A couple, again, they're going to be fantastic next year because they haven't done it this year. But on the other hand, I think there are 4 novice hurdlers going to the festival, all that have earned their slots, which is great. But it could have easily actually been more. Just 1 or 2 haven't quite come through the yeah, they haven't had, maybe their second season is a bit hard on them, and that they've got bright futures. Whereas last year, we said this time last year, we were saying that, or the beginning of last season, that the novice chasers were likely to be our strength. And actually Shishkin and Chantry House both won their novices at Cheltenham and Aintree. So it was, and as much as this year we rather hoped that the novice hurdlers were going to be the good boys, and I think they have been, which means the future is quite good because they are the future.
From the moment they come in July, August, everyone's thinking, looking, talking about all the potential stars that could come out in March, and now you're gearing into this time here. Everything's just sort of coming to a boil, and it's very, very exciting. Next 3 weeks are just, the build-up is amazing, and then the week just flashes by, and then before you know it, you're thinking about Aintree and Sandown at the end of the season.
What do you think is the key to make Nicky Henderson such a good trainer when it comes to Cheltenham?
He's a genius. What he does, which is amazing, is so patient, and he will give a horse time. It doesn't matter what horse it is, and he will never pressure them, and he'll give them more time than they need. They need an occasion. And I was chatting to Corky Brown, and that's what he said. He grabbed me by the collar and said, "Patience, patience." Yeah. That's the one thing you need as a trainer, is patience, and the boss is king of that.
I suppose this time last year, no runners in those novice hurdlers, but thinking and hoping that this time next year that those bumper horses or younger horses materialise. That must give you that fire in your belly to see them through the next 5, 6, 7 years. That's all mapped out. That's incredibly exciting.
How old are you going to make me by then?
Nicky, I'd hate to even say it, because your youthful enthusiasm for the game remains so much so because of these young horses making it so enjoyable.
I was talking at foals about it. We were just talking to various people. I mean, talking to a barrister actually last night, and she'd had the first of the National Hunt mares had just had a foal.
Yeah.
And she was full of enthusiasm for that. And now, if she's full of enthusiasm, I mean, I hope we're all still looking forward to they're going to be 6 or 7 before they hit the headlines. Yeah,
and Billy actually said to me the one thing he's learnt from you is patience, and patience will be rewarded. In last year, not having the novice hurdlers, but this year, you were patient with them, and they have turned into this good strength and depth in those races. Do you think you've sort of allowed them, the likes of Jonbon, you've allowed him to sort of come into his own in his own time?
He only came back to us at the sort of in the spring of last year. He was only ever going to have one run in the bumper, but he looked quite weak then, and he's a stronger version of it now. You'd have to say with some of the other novices, they were only going to be bumper horses last year, so where you just get an idea of what you're going to start next season with. And I mean, again, I didn't even have Constitution Hill wasn't here last year. I bought him during the summer, so unraced. No, he'd been beaten in the point-to-point actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, you never know what you've got until you actually sort of open the doors at the beginning of the season and see what's happening.
And this season in general, we've seen the way the race plans have sort of panned out. Shishkin being one, Champ the other actually, because at the beginning of the year he was hoping to give the Gold Cup a go. But your instinct and your experiences with horses over the last 40 years has told you to wait and see how things pan out, and that's worked well for Shishkin, who actually bypassed the Tingle Creek and ran in what was a magnificent race in the Clarence House. And for Champ himself, he's just found another route. Has that been quite an interesting experience this year, using your knowledge from what's best for horses to get to find what you can get out of them?
I think they tell us. We've just got to be able to read the signals. Shishkin, when he didn't run in the Tingle Creek, I mean, it was blatantly obvious he wasn't working as well as he should have been, and I wasn't happy with him. As you know, there were some rather, I don't know what to call it. There were a few critics that thought we were playing silly whatevers. And, you know, we know these horses, and he was just telling us he wasn't right. And we had to sadly miss the Tingle Creek. And if they, you know, they said, well, we were ducking the issue and we were protecting him for Cheltenham and this, that and the other. Well, the only thing you can say is that if I'd run him in the Tingle Creek, you wouldn't have had the chase at Ascot, which was the great race of the year, wasn't it? And it was a great performance. And, you know, the great thing about that race was that it didn't actually kill the Champion Chase. There was only a length in it. So the Champion Chase is now still it's the rematch.
Yeah.
And anything, a length is nothing.
Yeah.
So the Champion Chase is still going to be one of the highlights, because the two, plus, you know, he's going to come in with Chacun pour soi as well. It's good. It won't be a two-horse race, I'm absolutely sure.
Yeah, you said beforehand that if there are two people who aren't going to enjoy this, this can be myself and Willie. Have you been able to watch that back and quite enjoy that now and really take the perspective, which a lot of us have done, that was definitely the race of this century, if not one of the best races I've ever seen, and sort of enjoy the magic of it?
Well, I think, as I said that to Willie, because what you knew was that one of us is going to get beaten. And so one's going to really enjoy it at the end and one is not. And that seemed rather sad, really, that somebody had to go down. But they went down fighting. And that's why the Champion Chase is still going to be... If one of the horses, Shishkin or Narjanin, had won by 15 lengths, the Champion Chase would no longer be a very exciting contest.
Yeah.
Because one would assume that one is that much better than the other. When it was as close as that, it's still going to be fascinating.
Yeah, no, it totally will be. It's a brilliant rematch. We touched on these other two, the Supreme Novices. I'll just come back to that quickly because you've got here, I think the sentiment around it is really lovely as well. Jonbon for JP, a great friend. Constitution Hill for Michael Buckley. And I just wanted to talk quickly about the words that Michael said after the Tolworth Hurdle, how special it was to have another Grade 1 winner with you. But the journey that you, as friends, as owner, trainer, have been has been a bit of a roller coaster. You've been as much part of the down days as you've been part of the good days. So how special would it be to have another Cheltenham Festival winner with him come March?
It would, because he's passionate about it, as much as JP is.
Yeah.
You know, again, both of them as owners have been, not just owners, they've been enormous friends. And we've been able to take the rough with the smooth. And they understand it. They really do. They both understand horses. But Michael, that was a wonderful interview, Michael's after Tolworth. I sadly couldn't be there. I was COVIDed at the time. And it was rather sad sort of seeing him there on his own.
On his own, I know, from
with
Florida.
Nobody with him at all. And he did that wonderful interview, and it was very touching, because we've been all over the world together doing funny things, and he's just been a great friend, and he was some supporter to me earlier on in life when, you know, we didn't have this sort of caliber or quantity of horses.
Yeah.
But as things built up, you know, he was always there, and we've had some wonderful days, really wonderful ones, as much as we've had tragic ones as well.
Coming to Cheltenham, the nature that Constitution Hill shows is very relaxed, very chilled. Jonbon, a little bit more buzzy. Do you think that will serve Constitution Hill just slightly better come Supreme Novices with all those crowds?
You've always got the worry, but it is the first race on the first day, so it's sort of, you know, there will be in that, you know, the paddock then is already a cauldron of atmosphere and excitement, so it's hard. If we find it that, you know, not surprisingly the horses find it that, they feed off this sort of thing. And yeah, Constitution Hill is going to walk around there like he does here. nothing happens at all. Nothing would get you excited. I mean, I had to ring Barry several times. Say, Barry, what? Because we bought him off Barry Geraghty. He kept telling me what a good horse he was. I had to ring him up and say, but Barry, it's just it's a
Docile.
dope. Absolute dope. And then he showed me pictures of his 3-year-old daughter sat on him when he was a 3-year-old. And okay, fine, but it's not floating my boat much at the moment. Yeah. But then all of a sudden we started to do some work with it, and he suddenly asked it a question, and it did have some answers. Whereas you rightly say, Jonbon's of a completely different nature. He's one you just need to keep the lid on the whole time. He's I always used to say we suit each other because he's a fidget. And he lives like that a little bit. But that's fine.
Yeah, but a total professional in his race. Now, obviously the strength of this Supreme everyone is talking about. Willie sends over a great number of horses as well. What they will be, what was still to be seen. But everyone's making comparisons, fair if they're not. Fair, maybe they're not fair to the 2016 Supreme. Altior, Bouvardere was in that min as well. Is it very wrong to make any comparisons at this point with your two horses and Bouva and Altior when they were at this stage?
I think Bouvardere, he wasn't quite the finished article at that stage of his life. I'll be honest, when we were doing this sort of day in Altior's year when he was going for the Supreme, there was all this talk about Min in Ireland. It's the only time I can honestly say I was confident. I couldn't see that there was a horse that could beat Altior at that stage. He could do unbelievable things. And if, the years before we'd had Foheen's and all Willie's great horses then, and we were sort of getting hammered every time, but Altior was, he was, in my opinion, he was nearly unbeatable on that, going into that Supreme.
So my next question is going to be, does either of them give you that sort of same feeling that Altior did?
Well, it's funny that probably not, because if you've got two of them you think's that good, you can't be. I can't be confident of what's going to happen between ourselves. So,
fine.
Could you be? And we don't know what Willies are really. I mean, they're slightly less exposed than maybe some of his big horses in the past. So, and Constitution Hill's only run twice, so. No, I certainly wouldn't be confident, but I'm quite glad we've got two, because it's going to be a very important race.
Yeah, absolutely.
We want that scoreboard to be England 1, Ireland 0.
Yeah.
That's the first thing.
You were taught last year a lot about the Dublin Racing Festival and watching Honeysuckle, if I can even mention her name, and watching Enna Gamine and saying, I've told our horses not to watch. Did you look at the Dublin Racing Festival this year and think, oh gosh, oh dear?
Yeah, I did. It was impressive. Honeysuckle was great. The race it left the door open for us, the Gold Cup, I think. Mm-hmm. And so has the whole season, over here and over there. There hasn't been an outstanding, it's not to say that there are some outstanding horses, there isn't one that stands above the field in the Gold Cup, so that's going to be very open. I think there was too much made of the Dublin Racing Festival last year, and that's why the Irish beat us all. They had the Dublin Racing Festival. They didn't. Willie just had a bonanza for 2 days, and he had it to himself.
Yeah.
This year it was, again, Willie just waltzed away with about 7 Grade 1s and said, thank you very much. I hope we'll be able to put up a bit more opposition. But it's still going to be very hard. They have very good horses, but I hope we've got a bit of a squad here, and so have other people here. I mean, Paul's got what I would think would be pretty nearly one of the best chances. Brave Man's Game. He's going to take a lot of beating. And several others, obviously.
Yeah, your good friend Alan King and Edwardstone.
King and Edwardstone, I'm very, you'd have to say he's going to have a great chance. So, the one race I can't see us winning is the Triumph Hurdle. I've got to say, we might as well give that to them now.
Yeah, perhaps the bumper, that's always a bit tricky
and the
as
bumper,
well.
I'm sure. I'm not a great bumper fan. I like bumpers, but I think the Cheltenham Festival bumper is tough on horses.
In terms of the quality and the range you've got this year, if you look at the championship races in themselves, very, very good chances. I don't think there's been a year where the stayers you've had such a big chance, the Champion Hurdle, the Champion Chase and the Gold Cup. That in itself, yes, you've got the Irish opposition and others, but that's quite a nice position to be in this year of all years. Has there been years like that before where you felt like you could have a real crack at all four of them?
Probably not all in what as you say. Yeah, we've got chances in all, and it just either goes your way or it doesn't. But the worst thing now is these last 3 weeks of sort of just. It's never much fun. I think all the trainers are the same. There's going to be, nerves start jangling a bit, and there's so much that could go wrong. 24 hours is a long day in a horse's training life, and 3 weeks is a very long time. And there are bound to be news, rumours, or whatever you like, that so and so's got a problem.
Yeah.
And there's nothing worse.
You don't want to apply too much pressure because, again, the piece of work at the beginning of the season, it's got to be the same as at the end of the season. So you just want a nice, relaxed atmosphere. Obviously, the guys who look after different horses, there's a lot of banter between the guys who look after Jonbon and the guys who looks after Constitution Hill and the work rider. Because obviously they have faith in the horse that's underneath them, and they love those horses, and they want their horses to do as well as they can. Yeah. So there's that good banter between all the lads, and that's sort of the hustle and the bustle of it. But as for riding them, you don't want to put pressure on anyone because they know that there's the pressure there, but you just keep it steady and hope that everything works out. Every
morning every night when you go and look at them in the evening afterwards, especially after they've done some work or schooling or whatever, and you're feeling these legs and looking at them and testing them and scoping them and just watching for everything. And yeah, it just makes you, we're probably not the easiest people to live with at this time of the year, but we'll get there, and you hope you try and enjoy it as well.
Yeah.
As I say, like when, it wouldn't be the same if the phone wasn't ringing with people wanting to know this and that and the other.
Yeah.
Well, if that wasn't happening, it would mean you've
worried.
got nothing to talk about, so you might as well go and do something else.
You always talk about the fun that you have with the owners, and that you've got to have fun. That's what it's all about. And obviously last year was unusual, no crowds, no owners at all. Will you look forward to having everyone back and having more of a celebratory atmosphere of Cheltenham, or was last year quite nice in a way that you could sort of just get on with it without all the charades?
No, I think you want the people. I mean, it is part of it, and they do make it at the atmosphere. I mean, Jonbon probably would be better off last year, but he's got to grow up into it. Oh no, you do want the people, and it's quite difficult to, if you've got a lot of runners, to be sort of, concentrating on the, you virtually go from one race to the other. You don't get a lot of chance to go and sit down and debrief with your owners and things, because you're literally going on to the next, and at the end of the week you're absolutely out on your knees, and then you've now got to talk to everybody and see what you make of it all. But no, you could still enjoy it. We'd love it. I mean, you can enjoy it, and it's fun. It's people have got to make it fun, and we mustn't get too too emotional about it all.
I felt this year there have been moments where you really, really enjoyed your racing days. There was some brilliant footage after Shishkin won at Kempton of you. I'm not sure if you've watched it back. Your celebrations with the Donnellys, just loving it, and you said, we're back, and you had so much passion and emotion for it. Do you think as the years go by, you're getting a lot more emotional, more enjoyment out of those days?
Well, it certainly doesn't get any less, and you don't get any less wound up about this whole thing now. It's no less now. It's probably, I don't know, not more, but certainly just as much as we did 20, 30 years ago. I'm going to say 40, because it's what it is since we started.
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
But it's, say, when you've got the good horses, of course it makes it that little bit more. It gets on top of you that little bit more, and you have to be competitive, but you try to sort of just keep it under your own hat, but it's quite difficult to.
Yeah, well, you've always been the kind of person, a bit like Michael Buckley, who wears your heart on your sleeve and you enjoy it, and there's no fault of wanting to celebrate in those moments, and you really feel like, and I know as well as an owner with you, that you share in the emotions with the owners as much as anything, as much as plenty of trainers do, but you really get a real kick out of the owners enjoying it, those big special days, because you know how hard it is to get there and,
well, it is,
and
because,
celebrate.
Yeah, I mean, we're actually in the entertainment business, if you like, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
The owners are doing this as a hobby that they want to enjoy. There are going to be some brutally hard days to have to get through. So if you are lucky enough to have one that gets to this height and the excitement it brings with it, then you are literally, you've achieved something if you get a horse to Cheltenham for an owner, you know. I mean, when they buy it as an unbroken 3-year-old, they say, which race are you going to run in at Cheltenham? 4 years away.
But do you think owners come to you knowing that that's what's in your mindset? Because
no.
They don't come thinking,
no.
we've got to have a horse for Nicky Henderson because he'll get it to Cheltenham.
Yeah, no, I can't believe they think that way. I think they hope we come here because we all just try and have a good time and enjoy it, and as I say, live through the bad days and enjoy the good days.
Yeah, but it is special, and I know, you know, just reminding myself yesterday when I was doing a bit of research that obviously your great late dad essentially saved Cheltenham, and allowed it to be a racecourse. So probably from your whole life, it was always that little bit extra special.
It was. I mean, yes, it was an amazing thing he did. I expect it was probably quite a lot of money at the time. Whatever it was, 360,000, I think, for the whole of Cheltenham. I mean, you wouldn't buy a corner of it for that now, would you? But
well,
I mean,
exactly.
1968, I suppose it was.
But what it's done for racing, you know, you can't put a price on that, really.
No. He had a lot of foresight, and you know, racing was, you know, the Jockey Club were running it, and they had a lot of bright guys who knew how the world worked, and they did have some good ideas. Their dad was very good, and he loved his racing as much as it wasn't his prime sort of position in life. He was a city man, but he did a lot of good for racing. Yes.
Yeah, and he must have seen a lot of pride in seeing you. It's probably slightly unexpected then, really, if it wasn't his main sport, to see you then become such a successful trainer, and you're right. And then at Cheltenham, it's all sort of came round full circle.
I think it just surprised him, to be honest with you. Surprised him I could do it.
Why are you not in the city? This wasn't the plan.
I walked out of there and said goodbye, and I think he thought I was on the fast track to ruin. But I'd like to think he'd probably approve.